again. I want to thank everyone for joining the Department of State's session for the Military Career Expo. We are so happy to have you here this afternoon. I want to get started with a couple of housekeeping items. So just wanted to point out that if you all are having audio issues while we are on this call, you are able to join by phone, and at the top of the slide here, you'll notice that there are some numbers that you can call. You can choose based on your current location. So please jot down that information in case you run into some audio issues during the course of the call. All of the participants have been muted. The chat is enabled, and so if you do have questions or just wanted to make a comment, you are able to chat in whatever it is that you would like to share. I've also enabled the live transcript so that if you need it, it is available for you. If you would like to ask a question, which we will be taking questions after the slideshow is completed, that would be slide number 25. So after that, we will be taking questions. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, you can include your questions in the chat, and we will try to answer them as we go along. We'll also offer an opportunity to go into the breakout rooms after the presentation if you have questions for specific areas. And I'm going to stop talking now and go ahead and turn it over to Susan.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to unmute and it said this is not allowing participants to unmute themselves. So anyway, here I am. Do you want to start the slideshow? Because we're seeing your whole thing now. Just go up to slideshow on the top.
Sorry about that. Give me 1 second, I'll share it again. My apologies.
There you go. All right, excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here with you. My name is Susan Falatko, and I'm a Foreign Service Generalist in the economic career path, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. Now, we can go ahead to the next slide. This is just a picture of me speaking at an event in Slovenia. So I'm a generalist. I've been here with the Foreign Service for 23 years. I've done 7 countries and Washington, D.C. twice. And I'm now a diplomat in residence in Chicago. Basically, I'm a recruiter, which is why I'm here speaking to you today. I know some of you probably have a little bit of familiarity with the Department of State. Some of you won't. So I want to put this up here. You can kind of read it yourself for a second. And then I want to kind of point out a couple of interesting tidbits on this slide. So we'll leave this slide up for a second for people to take a look at it. What I want to point out about this slide in particular, you see the numbers on the side, how many of us there are. There's been a statistic floating around for many, many years, and I think it's still accurate. They used to say, you'll notice here that 14,000 foreign service. Not a big number. The statistic that was floating around for a long time said that the Department of Defense has more band members, musicians, in the DoD than the Foreign Service has in the Foreign Service, all the Foreign Service. So that goes to show you how small we really are, and yet we make a big impact. Our numbers we actually gain here with the local staff. If you look at that, 51,000 local staff. We are in 275 embassies and consulates around the world. And we could not do this without the help of our local staff at all of our embassies and our consulates. We also have 10,000 civil service positions, and that means folks that do similar things. They do foreign affairs work, but primarily domestically, usually in Washington, but we also have some other offices around the country. Okay, next slide, please. There's several paths to the State Department, and these are the 5 that we're going to talk about today. Foreign Service officers and Foreign Service specialists. These are the ones that we typically consider Foreign Service, and I'll talk a little bit about the difference coming up. Civil Service, as I mentioned, are the ones that are going to do very similar jobs, but mostly in Washington at the State Department or somewhere in the country domestically. We also have fellowships and internships, some of which are actually glide paths. It is built into them that you are going to enter the Foreign Service as following the fellowship or internships. We also have some discrete internships where people can come in and do an internship, and then there's no obligation to stay or no offer of a job following that. And then finally, we have the Consular Fellows Program, and I'll talk about that a little bit on one of the future slides. So next slide, please. So Foreign Service. We have officers and we have specialists that promote U.S. interests and protect U.S. citizens overseas. Typically, because these are foreign service positions, you could expect to spend a good probably 2/3 or more of your career overseas. And we work at embassies typically for 2 or 3 years, and then you move every 2 or 3 years to another embassy with the occasional tour back in Washington from time to time. So as a foreign service officer or specialist, you are required to be worldwide available. Next slide, please. So the foreign service officers, which is the generalists, there are 5 career tracks: political, economic, public diplomacy, consular, and management. These all have different functions depending on where they are. You know, political officers are going to be reporting on the political situation, the human rights situation, those kinds of things. I myself am an economic officer, so we are looking at not so much numbers crunching, but political economy, what's happening in the economy that affects the political situation, how does it affect our bilateral relationship. Public diplomacy is kind of the outward facing part of our embassies. They work with the press, they work with the public, they do outreach on sharing our values with folks overseas in our host countries. Consular are the folks who do visas and American citizen services. So if you've ever been overseas and you lost a passport, you had to go see the embassy, you saw a consular officer. And then we have, obviously, with 275 facilities, we have a huge management platform. So we hire management officers to run everything. Next slide, please. Now, foreign service specialists, as the name suggests, are more specialized folks that we hire. And these are some of the specialists that we hire. We have a diplomatic security service. So we do hire law enforcement. We hire administration folks with specializations in human resources, financial management, et cetera. We hire engineers. We have buildings. We need to build new ones. We need to upgrade and update and secure the ones that we have. So we have security engineers, construction engineers. We hire facility managers. Obviously, with such a big, with all of our facilities, we need an IT platform. So we hire IT managers, we hire IT specialists. Medicine and health. We hire doctors, nurse practitioners, physicians assistants. In many of the embassies around the world, you're going to have a healthcare team, usually with an American healthcare professional. Not always, but often. So we hire those. And we also hire psychiatrists who are usually based regionally, who can help out. You know, COVID was a difficult time for people in the States, but also for people overseas. And so we do have we have foreign service psychiatrists who can help us through those difficult times. And then finally, we hire these international information and English language programs. Some of our embassies, especially in non-English speaking posts, will have kind of a resource center, usually like a library. We hire librarians. We hire folks to provide English language programming to folks in non-English speaking countries. So these are some of the specialists that we do. Next slide, please. So what are we looking for the Foreign Service? Basic things, the minimum, you have to be a US citizen, not a green card holder, but a citizen. Age 20 to 59, and this is because there is a congressionally mandated retirement age of 65 for the Foreign Service. So for the Foreign Service to join as a Foreign Service generalist, you have to be 59 by the time you start. The age is different for some of the specialists, particularly for diplomatic security. I think the maximum age is 36 when you can join. You need a high school degree, and we say for FSOs, Foreign Service Officers, and we point this out because Foreign Service Officers do not have to come into the Foreign Service with a university degree. Some of our specialists do, basically based on the nature of what they specialize in, they're going to need a university degree. Our IT folks will need a degree, our security folks will need a degree. But for a generalist, someone coming in as a generalist, if you can come in and pass the exam and you do well on your application and your personal narratives, you don't need a degree. Next slide, please. So what else are we looking for? You don't need a degree. You don't necessarily even need a specific kind of experience. If you haven't traveled overseas, if you don't have international relations experience, that's not necessarily what we're looking for. What we are looking for, we label under these 13 dimensions. These are qualities or attributes that we have found really contribute to the success of a Foreign Service officer. So we're not looking for specific job knowledge. We're looking for these attributes. I put this picture up here. This is a picture of me in Rwanda, where I served as public affairs officer once. And as a public affairs officer, you have a small pot of grants funding. And I funded a women's cooperative. They were growing mushrooms as a way to make an income stream for their community. And I put this picture here because it really illustrates one of the dimensions that we're looking for, and that's cultural adaptability. You know, I would guess that most of us did not grow up in a situation similar to this. And so you're going to be in situations that are very different from what you are possibly used to. And so cultural adaptability is a big part of those dimensions. But other things that are just as important, resourcefulness. You're going to find yourself in situations that are very different from what you're used to, and you have to be able to think on your feet. Written communication, oral communication are huge. So these, if you're looking to join the Foreign Service, I would encourage you to go to our careers website, which is careers.state.gov down on the bottom there, and take a look at these 13 dimensions, because when you apply, you want to demonstrate in your application how you have demonstrated some of these, not necessarily, like I said, specific job information or job knowledge. Next slide, please. Civil service. So this is the other part of what we do at the U.S. Department of State. Civil service officers typically do a lot of the same things that we do overseas, except they do them in a Washington context. So we have offices and bureaus in Washington that we have regional bureaus for all of the different regions. We have different functional bureaus, an economic bureau, an oceans, environment, and science bureau, a non-proliferation bureau. And we hire folks with specialized knowledge in some of these things. And they would be civil service, so they would typically do most of their career in Washington, not overseas. If that is something that you're looking for, I know not everybody loves the transient lifestyle. I would encourage you again to go on usajobs.gov. You can go on either careers.state.gov. There's a section that says apply now that will show you exactly what civil service and foreign service jobs are open. Or you can go to usajobs.gov to look for the kind of job that might fit your specific technical expertise or specific knowledge. Next, please. We also have internships. Most of these are for students. So if you are retiring from the military, some of them may not necessarily apply to you, but I would encourage you to look at our careers.state.gov website, which goes into a lot of detail on these. Our internships are paid. So if you know of a student, you want to tell them about these. Our summer internships are paid. They're 10 weeks long, and they're either going to be in Washington, D.C. or overseas at one of our embassies. So it's a great way to kind of get a sense of, is this lifestyle for you? We do have a pathways program, and this is something that is kind of a glide path into the Foreign Service. And for folks that are not currently enrolled in school, we have a recent graduate program that can be a glide path into the Foreign Service, but you have to have graduated within the last 2 years. For veterans, I believe there is a little bit of a longer time for that. I'd have to check on that, but yes, there's a recent graduates program. Let's go on to fellowships, to the next page, please. So we have several fellowships. These are typically also for graduate students or junior seniors in university. These will fund 2 years of school, and then they're a path into the Foreign Service. So again, if these interest any of you, I would encourage you to look at careers.state.gov. There's a lot more detail on any of that. And of course, you can ask some questions about them if you're interested. Next slide, please. All right, so the VIP Fellowship Program, this is open to armed forces veterans and transitioning US military. This is a temporary 52-week appointment, but it does require a master's degree to start. So that, again, you can get more information on that on careers.state.gov. Next slide. And then finally, the last way into the Foreign Service is the Consular Fellows Program. This is a limited 5-year appointment for people with languages that we are looking for in order to work in consulates or embassies where we have a high visa demand. We have a big backlog in visas, partly from COVID, partly from just years of backlog. So we're looking to appoint people to do consular work for 5 years. You would have to be a fluent Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, or Arabic speaker. Those are the critical languages where we're looking for these folks. It's not a direct route to a long-term Foreign Service career, but some people do decide to make the jump, and they would still have to apply as a Foreign Service officer. But this is a really good kind of, entry, so folks can see if this is really the life that they want to pursue. So next one, please. So what can you do to prepare? I get this question all the time, and it really is kind of a broad answer, but be curious. Read everything. A lot of people think I'm an international relations major, so I know all about international politics and geography and this. But moving forward, look at all of the emerging technology, look at all of the emerging science. Think about how someone is going to have to be building guardrails around this in an international sense. Think of data privacy, all of these very technical issues. These are things we as Foreign Service officers are out there negotiating with the Europeans, with other countries. We need folks that actually, know something about this and can kind of help us to do these negotiations. So, be curious and read outside your comfort level. Know your geography, which sounds kind of self-evident as you're going to be working overseas, but it's worth saying anyway. Do know your geography. Oral and written communication skills are key, and I can't emphasize how much. Writing for the Foreign Service is a very, very specific skill because you're trying to get as much information back to Washington as you can, but as concisely as you can, and getting right to the points. It's very much, you think about your Washington audience, they have so much coming in at them every day. So you have to be able to make your point very quickly, succinctly, and ask for whatever you need so that they can move on to the next thing. So written communication skills, very critical. And then of course, leadership skills, which all of you have probably gained already, working your way through your life up until now. But leadership skills, you'll have to demonstrate that. And I think, through life experiences, through jobs, through internships in the past, that's how you can do that. And then that last one kind of just reiterates the rest of them. Really just expand your comfort zone. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague from Med.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Keme, and I support the Talent Acquisition Office here at the Bureau of Medical Service. I will be providing information about global medical career opportunities with the Department of State as Foreign Service Medical Specialist. Next slide, please. Within DOS, we have a medical bureau whose mission is to safeguard and promote the health and well-being of America's diplomatic community. Providers and specialists who work within the bureau mainly provides healthcare to U.S. diplomats and their eligible family members while living overseas. Next slide. Here is a list of the careers in which we recruit and hire. We hire medical providers who are certified family nurse practitioners or physician assistants who are primary care and see patients across the full lifespan. Regional medical officers who are physicians, and we hire family medicine physicians, emergency medicine physicians, and internal medicine physicians who have an MD or DO degree. We also hire regional medical laboratory scientists to support lab operations, and they are medical laboratory scientists or laboratory technologists by training. In addition to regional medical officers, we hire regional medical officer psychiatrists who practice adult psychiatry and/or child and adolescents. These are also providers with MD or DO degrees. The Bureau of Medical Services also has limited non-career appointee careers, as Susan mentioned, which offers registered nurses, social workers, and protective medicine specialists the opportunities to join the Foreign Service for one-year appointments with options to reapply and not to exceed 5 years. Lastly, we do want to mention that along with the careers mentioned above, if you are working in the medical field or of a specialty listed or not listed, and you are an eligible family member or tandem couple, you do have the opportunity to find work in the Embassy Health Unit at your assigned post. This is a different hiring process, and you will have to contact the embassy at post. Next slide, please. The medical careers within DOS is a challenging yet rewarding career opportunity to impact the lives of diplomats and their families through healthcare. Not only do you get the opportunity to provide healthcare services, but you also have the opportunity to do many other things along with engaging in diplomacy. If you are interested in our careers, we do have rolling vacancy announcements that open for all career specialties multiple times a year. So if you miss an application or the chance to apply, you're able to sign up with us through a database, and also be sure to follow us on Facebook and social media at DOS Careers Med. The career offers great benefits for you and your family, both professionally and personal, with a life full of adventure. Lastly, follow us again on social media, but also if you have questions, you're able to email us at medrecruiting@state.gov. We look forward to hearing from you soon. And also, if you are ever attending a conference where we will be sharing the careers, we give out these globes to remember the Foreign Service medical specialist careers. And I'll pass it over to Andrew with IT for IRM. Oh, and here are some photos of some of our Foreign Service medical specialists as they are overseas practicing medicine and doing things outside of work to promote the embassy communities and also in their free time. Now over to Andrew.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining me today. IRM, our Information Resource Management Bureau, supports all the consulates and embassies all around the world. So it's 275 different missions that we support in 191 countries. And that includes 2,700 employees. So every consulate and embassy, we support their IT systems. We also help out with other agencies like USAID, FBI. If a bureau or agency has an overseas presence, we help support their IT needs. The only exception to that is DoD. DoD does their own thing. We have civil service jobs domestically for those with specialized skills and expertise, and you can find those jobs at usajobs.gov. And there's also the foreign service position, the IMS, which we're recruiting for all year long. The application process for that can be quite long. It can be over a year, and there is an online skills test as part of that application. Next slide, please. Like I said, we're all over the world. It's a very unique job. Benefits are fantastic. So a lot of career progression opportunities. There's training resources. You can learn new technical skills at our Foreign Service Institute. If you want to learn about data analytics, you can take a data analytics course. Or if you want to learn about networking, there's networking courses that are available. So we're not looking for somebody that knows everything. If you have technical skills, we know you can learn new skills, and we provide those classes at FSI. There's a lot of development you can do professionally outside of your technical skills. You're provided a mentor upon entering, and there's management and other professional skills you can learn, like public speaking or negotiations. Those are also available at the Foreign Service Institute. Like I mentioned, the variety of work is wide. You can see here, there's all kinds of different things you can do. It just depends where you are. If you're at a small post, there can be challenges just providing a modern office environment. At a big post, you may get more specialized. You may be tasked with automating processes or providing data analytics services. Another big benefit is our Cyber SIP or Skills Incentive Program. If you come in and you get one of these technical certifications, you can get a 10 to 15% bump in pay. So that's quite nice. It's a nice bonus, and it keeps your skills current. That's all for IRM. I'll turn it over to the next presenter.
Sean, are you?
Thank you, Sonia. All right,
You're welcome.
appreciate that. And thank you, Andrew. Hey, this is Sean Lenahan here. I'm speaking on behalf of the Bureau of Overseas Buildings Operations. As you can see from this slide, the Department of State Overseas Building Operations, also known as OBO, is the property manager for all overseas diplomatic properties. So OBO sets the worldwide priorities and allocates the resources for acquiring, designing, constructing, operating, maintaining, leasing, and disposing of U.S. diplomatic properties all around the world. Their mission is to provide safe, secure, functional, and resilient facilities that represent the U.S. government to host nations and support the department's achievement of U.S. foreign policy objectives abroad. Next slide, please. Now, in addition to the facility manager and construction engineer foreign service specialist roles, as you can see, OBO offers career opportunities domestically in a wide range of disciplines, to include the many that you see here: architects, engineers, real estate professionals, interior designers, IT, art, historic preservationists, and budget and policy analysts. We have a lot of opportunities here. And for more information, feel free to email oborecruit@state.gov and visit state.gov's website, where you can learn more about the overseas buildings operations. We're coming up on our timeline here. So next slide, please, Sonia. That wraps up our broad overview of the U.S. Department of State. At this time, we will be accepting any questions that you might have through the chat. And we also have breakout rooms if you have a specific question for one of the speakers that spoke today. But we'd just like to say thank you so much for attending, and we really appreciate it. Thanks.
Hi, Sonia. I see that you unmuted me. I'm not sure if you wanted me to speak up now, but my name is Lindy Nestor. I'm a medical provider, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in the medical breakout room.
Yes, so if anyone has questions, you can direct them to the expert in the subject matter expert in the breakout room. You would go to, if you look across the bottom of your screen, you should have a box that says breakout rooms. I'm actually opening them now, and please join the breakout room of your choice. If you have a question and want to come back to the main room, just leave that breakout room, don't leave the meeting, or you can choose breakout rooms again and go to a different breakout room. For those of you who are still in this main room, I would suggest that you select one of the 4 breakout rooms. That's where the Department of State subject matter experts will be available to answer your questions.